Hey everybody, how are y'all doing today? My name is Nate, and today I want to talk a little about trick stabbing as spy, and how to do some of the trick stabs. Now I understand that there are plenty of trick stabbing tutorials out there, but I just enjoy playing spy so much that I couldn't not take this opportunity to teach you guys a little bit. There's just something about sneaking behind people and even tricking your opponents into doing something that I love so much. Now generally when you play spy, you want to be able to stay hidden and stab your enemies when their backs are turned. However, in some situations, doing something called a trick stab is a very efficient way of backstabbing them without sneaking behind them first. In other words, it's a desperation move if there aren't any other good options to get by. Say for example, your cloak runs out and a player spots you. Instead of trying to run away and survive, you quickly trick them into walking in a certain direction, and you stab them before they can react. Sometimes it's very risky to try to pull off, but if you succeed, it can be super rewarding for you. Now what's great about trick stabbing is that there's a lot of room to be able to pull it off. As you can see here, I have about this entire half of the player to be able to stab them. It leaves me a lot of room to do tricks and stab them from different angles. Even if you're on top of them, you have tons of space to stab, both horizontally and vertically. So when you attempt these stabs I'll be talking about, don't worry about being perfectly at their back, since you have a lot of room to work with. The first trick stab we're going to talk about is the stair stab. This requires you to jump over your opponent's head and stab them when you have the higher ground. Since a lot of TF2 players don't seem to look up, it can really confuse them if you do it right. To start off, jump towards your opponent and aim to land behind their heads. While in the air, you need to quickly turn around and hold crouch, so you can be facing their backs. And right before you land, quickly press W, so you'll basically drop down on their backs. Then all you have to do is stab when the right moment happens. Of course, this is all going to happen a lot faster on an actual opponent, so I practiced this on bots first, so pressing all of the keys will become a habit. Another great thing about stair stabs is that you can pull them off even if you only have a small height advantage. As long as you can jump over the player, you'll be able to stair stab them. This works on small inclines, obstacles, and even an engineer's teleporter if you time it right. The next trick stab here is the corner stab, and this is probably the most efficient and quick trick stab to pull off. A corner stab is done by pretending you're going a certain direction by walking past a corner or an obstacle or something, then quickly turning back around and stabbing the player following you. So after you walk a certain direction, you need to start walking back by strafing around the enemies. And if you don't get what I mean by strafing, it's basically walking around by using the A and D keys. In this case, we're holding A and moving our mouse right, so we keep facing the enemy. We also need to make sure to leave enough space for the enemy to walk past us, or else we'll just bump into each other. Then when his back is presented to us, we move closer and simply backstab him. And don't worry, I understand if this is complicated at first, especially if you haven't attempted a trick stab before. To go over that again, you walk past a corner or obstacle, walk back around by strafing, and stabbing them when their back is shown. This is also a lot easier to pull off if you aren't visible when pretending to run away. They'll fall for your trick a lot more often. Now the matador stab is a lot like the corner stab, except it can be a little bit harder to pull off. Instead of using a corner or obstacle to walk past, you simply use your movements to trick someone into walking somewhere or facing a different direction. So once you pretend to walk towards a certain direction, you'll quickly turn back, so they'll move towards the spot you were just at, and get backstabbed. So it's very similar to a corner stab, in the fact that you strafe back towards your enemies, but in this case you can't hide behind anything first. Make sure to have a good look at the enemy, and move quickly when you attempt to do it. This next one is the leaping stab, and this one's pretty easy if you know how to move throughout the air. All you do is drop down from a high up area and stab someone kind of like you would in a stair stab. In this case though, the enemy doesn't see you because you're out of their field of view. It's almost like you're an eagle swooping down to an opponent without them realizing it. You just have to get a hang of air strafing and landing on top of people first. To air strafe, you use A and D after jumping or falling to steer yourself with your mouse towards someone below. Then just crouch and stab once you're in the right spot. This last trick stab, called the understab, isn't used nearly as often, but it's probably one of the least predictable stabs for a spy to do. When an enemy has the higher ground and is dropping from above, you predict the place they're going to land and backstab them while they're on top of you. This is especially easier to pull off if they're coming for you. While they're falling, quickly turn around and face the direction they're facing, and stab upwards. It's not easy for them to avoid, unless they choose to change their direction as well. Now as the last few tips, just remember that being effective as a spy is about decepting people. Get creative with your stabs, and how you maneuver around players. One good trick is to use the loud decloak sound of a dead ringer to get people to follow you around a corner. They'll be more likely to believe that you're running away. Another is to disguise as a friendly teammate. Since a lot of good players are careful not to get trick stabbed, they'll fall for it if they don't know you're a spy. Everything is just about good deception. In the end, it all just comes down to playing a lot of Spy and getting creative. I also suggest practicing in Group Keep, since you'll be forced to use a knife, plus most of your opponents will have to resort to close range melee weapons. It will give you a lot more opportunities to get the stabs just right. Anyways, that's all I have to talk about today. If you have any concerns or questions, just feel free to ask me or someone else in the comments below. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all next time.